Welcome to the live broadcast here at the Collector Zone. We're once a week trying to do it on Sundays, where we talk about video games and play some video games. And today, as you see, we're talking about the Atari 50th, the anniversary celebration, or as people normally call it, Atari 50, which is the best, I think, the best video game compilation ever. Because not only does it have video games that we treasure as Atari fans, it's got 90 of them, give or take, but it's also like an interactive museum. So we can check this out today. And we got some killer Atari news to go over with you. So without further ado, let's hop in here. Now, a lot of you who are watching this, you either A, played Atari games before, B, grew up in that time era, or C, what the hell's going on with this Atari and what's the news? So let's get into this. So basically, we're going to dive in here a little bit, show you off this Atari collection. We're not going to have a long video about this, but we're going to dive in. But I'd like to talk about some quick Atari news. Now, you may or may not have heard, but on April 19th, Atari acquired 100 PC and console titles from the 80s and 90s. Now, amongst its collection, they're thinking about doing a expanded digital and physical distribution of these classic titles. And of course, you know, they're trying to move forward from what they just released on this collection here. I know that some of you guys who grew up with Atari, if you're like me, I grew up in the 70s. 77, you know, Atari came out when I first discovered it, but of course Atari started its business, as you can see here, in 1972. What makes me so happy about this collection here is that there's more than half a dozen platforms. You got the 2600, the 52, 78, covers the Atari 8-bit computer era, the Lynx, Jaguar, or Lynx, excuse me, Lynx, Jaguar, and of course Arcade. Let's dive in here a little bit of this footage. When I first got this was really cool, and I'm not sure if you guys seen this yet, for the ones who are tuning in for the first time, so let's check it out.
Well, I'd say 30 years to pretty much the present. The arcades have been relegated to the back rooms and the side streets, and generally been an unsavory type of place. What we want to do is bring the amusement game to age. If we can give it a new zip and a pizzazz, it's going to be financially successful, as well as, I think, a very serious part in the leisure time activity of the American people.
The marriage of traditional pinball machines and computer technology has resulted in the birth of a new breed of amusement games. And Nolan Bushnell is the man handing out the cigars. Bushnell has developed two such games, Computer Space and Pong, and believes that they and others like them will move the pinball industry out of America's bus stations and bowling alleys and into the space age. In 1971, Bushnell invented Computer Space, but sold production rights to Nutting Associates of Mountain View, California, for royalties based on the number of games sold. It proved a good deal for both parties. Sales already exceed 1,500 machines. Computer Space, like Pong, sells for around $1,000 and is played on the screen of a standard television set, which has been programmed to display the desired game. In computer space, the player controls a rocket ship, which is trying to shoot down enemy flying saucers while avoiding their missiles. If the player scores more hits than the enemy saucers, he gets one free play. By the time Bushnell invented Pong in 1972, he was able to form his own company, Syzygy Corporation in Santa Clara, California, to produce the game. He has already sold over 1,000 machines and expects to sell 10,000 in the United States by the end of the year. Pong, as the name might indicate, is a game of video ping pong. The two players turn dials which control their electronic paddles and volley with an equally electronic ball. The first player to score 15 points wins. While Bushnell did design and program both his games, the technology he uses dates back to the late 1950s. Thanks to research by the Defense Department in the wake of Sputnik, Bushnell is now able to act out his dream of a nation inhabited by thousands of Pong and computer space games.
The government spent millions of dollars on this technology, and as a result, now it's cheap enough that we can put it into a game and sell it for 25 cents for a few minutes and make $1 out of it. It's something that the research and development really was done many years ago, and now it's cheap enough that with PC boards and integrated circuits, we can use that technology to our advantage.
The basic electronic unit of Bushnell's games is the integrated circuit. Each of these small chips is capable of storing large amounts of information. The program for a game is determined by specific combinations of these units to form a PC, or printed circuit board. The printed circuit board then tells the TV screen what to do. A single printed circuit board is all that is required to operate Pong, whereas 15 years ago it would have taken enough tubes and wiring to fill an average house. Bushnell first saw the commercial potential of video games in a game called Space War, which has been played at computer centers around the country for several years.
We used to play Space War a lot at the AI project at Stanford, which is a big computer complex. And one day it just hit, this is a lot of fun, to be able to package it and sell it for a price. And, one thing leads to another, and pretty soon, from doodling on a scratch pad, you're actually working out some basic block diagrams, and from there you think, boy, it's going to work.
Pretty cool, huh? The more you know. Little fun fact about Nolan Bushnell. In 1977, while he was hanging out at Atari, he purchased Pizza Time Theater, which, was a little thing he wanted to do. He rebranded it as Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Time Theater, and it's where he put all of his Atari games in there so kids could play them and get used to them. Brilliant. Pure brilliant. So, yeah, for those who didn't know, Chuck E. Cheese is, only around because of Nolan Bushnell doing his thing, trying to expand people's knowledge about the Atari video games. Now, there was some talk here. Yes. Did they do drugs at Atari? Now, let's go ahead and address that elephant in the room.
You will hear stories of hot tubs in the lobby and drug use in the office, and I'm here to tell you that none of that happened in my department.
We started smoking pot right in our office. Rob and I were like the premier pot. Sorry, Rob. I and some other person who occasionally shared an office with me for 5 years at Atari, however that frickin' worked, we would just fire up right in the office. It's like, who knows why? It's like, it's illegal. It's like, it wasn't even a sense of privilege. It was just mindlessness.
I worked in a satellite office. I started in 1977, which was still pretty early. It was only 18 months since the 2600 came out. But there was no hot tub in the lobby of the office that I went to. There was no drug use in Atari, though I don't doubt that it was over where Howard and Todd Fry were working.
Drugs were consumed at Atari by all kinds of people at all levels of management, from the bottom to the top and all over engineering. Not everybody did drugs, but some people did, and some people enjoyed them, and some people abused them, and some people went to the hospital on them. And but by and large, drugs were a relatively nominal factor. Drugs, you know, there was a lot of marijuana, and it participated a lot in brainstormings. So we had the way of, you know, trying to incorporate drugs into our productivity model.
I went home and I smoked a joint, a little bit of cocaine and a little bit of psilocybin in it. And I was sitting there, it was about half gone when I realized, oh, you could do that. And it's like I put it out and I went and I wrote a page of notes. And my design for that kernel was exactly what it ended up shipping. It was like, it has a tremendous amount of effort, actually, to get everything organized.
You know, they did have good deliveries of cannabis in the inter-office mail. You know, that was probably the primary use of those yellow manila envelopes. I think it was, you know, Fridays or Monday. I think it was Fridays when you get these really thick envelopes coming through the system. And, you know, and it was weird. It was like there was a guy working there, and his job was he was the weed dealer. You know, that was his sole job at the whole company.
And there was a very straight German VP of hardware down the hallway in the building. I have no idea. He complained to management about the smell of pot smoke in the corridors. So they got him an office in a different building.
I have been asthmatic since I've been 12. I need drugs to breathe. I did not do drugs because drugs to me were something that let you get up in the morning, you know, and breathe. So and nor did I think I wanted to mix those things. The high of me was doing the work, and I was always a happy guy. So I just didn't feel I needed it. So I never did drugs, but there were a lot there.
Don't put too much stock in the fact that every Atari employee was stoned out of their minds while making games.
I mean, there was all kinds of drugs consumed at Atari, but the real drug at Atari was going into a store and seeing your product, seeing your game on a shelf.
There you go. From the horse's mouth, you got the story. Now, going back here a little bit about the new games that the Atari had acquired, the 100 said titles from the 80s and 90s. The current Atari CEO, Wade Rosen, said, "This is a deep catalog that includes groundbreaking and award-winning titles from Accolade, Infogrames and Microprose." And he also says that many of these titles are a part of Atari history, and fans can look forward to seeing many of these games re-released, not only in physical and digital forms, but he says in some cases even ported to modern consoles. So basically, after this wonderful release of the Atari 50, they will continue, hopefully, to do a good job. I was really pleased with this. This Atari 50 collection, you know, was done by Digital Eclipse. And Digital Eclipse did such a phenomenal job. I was really happy with their Ninja Turtles version they did. And I'm always impressed by Digital Eclipse. Now, about this little Atari 50 here, we can talk a little bit about the computer system. This is really cool. This was known as Atari VCS, you know, and it was rebranded the Atari 2600. So let's check this out.
on the simplest level, what the VCS, the Atari 2600, what that is, it's a combination of plastic and computer chips that enables you to play a video game, an interactive video game on your home television, which is something that never really happened before.
If you're making an arcade game, it begins as a hardware project. If you need something more in the hardware, just put it in the hardware and you can use it in your game. The Atari 2600, we didn't have that luxury. The game was already in Grandma's house. It was already hooked up to her TV. And all we could do is make a different cartridge, sell that to the person, he plugs it in.
It was the thing that made video games a worldwide phenomenon. And all it is it's a box that enables you to play an interactive game on your TV. But on a cultural level, that's such a huge thing to do, because there were two things that achieved that changed the world, literally changed the world. One is it put computers in homes. At a time where IBM only had about 10,000 PCs sold altogether, Atari had millions of units installed, and every one of those was a computer in the home. The other thing it did was it created an interactive medium with television, which was always a passive medium. Before video games, people were just zombies sitting on the couch watching TV. But video games turned people into zombies jumping up and down on the couch yelling at the TV. And that was a very different experience. And I think that was huge in terms of taking people from a passive state to an active state. And we're still learning the implications of that.
Pretty cool, huh? Now, you may have noticed in some of these clips, Eugene Jarvis, he's a guy who came up with Defender, and he was one of the he was a concept developer for Defender, and Robotron he did. So he was been highly known for some amazing games. So, you know, I followed his career throughout time, and I always go back to that. I'll tell you what, Defender and Robotron are two great games. But let's move on here. Talk a little bit about some Trouble in Paradise. Now, as you heard earlier, I didn't know about the Atari home console until I think around 77, maybe a little bit before. My neighbor down the street got one. Now, when I went to Sears, I remember seeing it. And what they did here in the 80s is they rebranded this. So, as far as collectors go, if I was to collect original Atari system for the 2600, I'll go with the wood grain one because that's what I grew up with. But in the 80s, for you guys who are around the 80s, may have seen these black versions. So, for the completionists, you know, you may recognize this. I have not seen one in person, but it's really cool to actually see that this was around. Now, television followed at its heels, and I've seen kids play this, and I thought it was okay, but I was already into Atari, and this comes down to where it's like the Nintendo versus, you know, Sega. It's just like, you know, where were you at in that point in time? So, you know, for you guys who are exposed to Nintendo first, Sega may not have been your console growing up, and for me, the television came up after the Atari, and shortly after we had the ColecoVision, which was my very first console. Now, computers, as you heard them earlier in that clip, talk about computers. I never had a computer in my home growing up. It was much later in time that I had went and was able to save up for one because I was curious about computers. And the crazy part thing about computers back in the days was when I got my first computer, which was a Tandy TRS-80, you didn't have anything running. It was DOS, and you had to do your own programming. Well, Atari wanted to get their hands in the computer market. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. That way you can see it. And this is a little bit about, you know, their little introduction to the system. And it's pretty, you know, if I was already an Atari fan, I would have been, you know, okay, we'll check it out. So let's see here. There you go. Let's talk about the first gaming PC.
I think the Atari 400, 800 were really the first home computers that I felt like were designed to be in somebody's home and for an average person to utilize.
Atari, you know, made some interesting decisions over the years. I mean, they were #1 in the world in making video games, but they saw home computers were coming. And Apple II was out, and they said, we got to compete with Apple for, you know, computers. So it came down from on high that we were going to make a computer like the Apple II, but better in some way. But the engineering department said, hey, we're video game people. Why are we doing this? But they were told, you will do this. So what actually happened was the engineers made the Atari 800 into the next best video game player. It had all the sprite capability, it had coprocessors in there. You know, the first GPU in a computer was probably in the Atari 800. All of this stuff was going on in the engineering department, and yet the management thought we were making a computer. We were really just making a video game that we could make cool games on.
My participation was mainly on the prototype pre-production side. We had this very sophisticated, allegedly sophisticated, internal interactive test system called the PIT system that we couldn't get a single unit to pass. Labor Day 1979, can you guys work overtime over the weekend? We need to hand build some production units because we need to put them complete through the entire process. They need to be completely finished, consumer product in the box. We need these for JCPenney's so that they can make the holiday catalog. So we worked, I actually didn't leave Atari for about 3 days, hand building these units. And it was like 4 400s and 4 800s to ship on Monday to JCPenney's. They received them at their warehouse, they took pictures of them for the catalog, and then they immediately shipped them back to us. That was it. That's what we needed to do to get this product out.
My main contribution to the Atari 800 operating system, I created a language similar to PostScript that could draw lines and squares and circles and vector graphics drawn into the bitmap of the Atari 800 and put them into the operating system so that I didn't have to put it in any of my games. So I could borrow from the operating system stuff that I'd put in there and use it when making games. So yes, we were tasked with working on the operating system, but we did it our way. We did it in the video game method.
The idea came up that maybe I could get one of these machines for Christmas, and I thought I was going to get an Apple II because that was what I had at school and what I thought was cool. But I got an Atari, and it was an Atari 800 with a tape cassette drive. You know, at first I was like, oh, it's not an Apple, but you know, it's my own computer. It's super exciting. And then the more I got into it, you know, the more I realized it was so much better than the Apple. Probably piss off some Apple people, but it, you know, it was really an amazing machine. I mean, the graphics and sound on it were incredible, and it was a super fun machine to program. And so that was really what got me started.
There you go. The first PC made for gaming, for gamers. I thought that was kind of cool because, you know, that's just something that not too many people think about. You know what? I forgot to show you this here. Atari Age. For those who don't know, Atari Age was a magazine based off of, you know, the Atari Club, as it says right there, and it's still going strong today. You can go to AtariAge.com. I'll put a link below once the show ends live. I'll get all the links fixed for you, but I'll include that. It's really cool because it talks about all their systems, the 2600, all the way down to the Jaguar, and it's got some forums and references to the magazine, trivia and all that, and even it's got a little store going on there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Now we got to talk about the 90s, man, because that Jaguar, I heard good stuff about it. The 90s were rocking. We had Nintendo going. We had the handhelds going for the Game Boy and all that. Atari, Lynx. I mean, I was working at Dillard's, and this was in the 90s now, so it's been released for a while. And that's the time I was able to try out and play it. Yeah, so for $180 there. Let's check this out.
There were so many things near the end of my early days with Atari that I wished, like everything we felt was underappreciated. Like I bought a Lynx, and I was trying to find people to play the Lynx with me, and everyone else had a Game Boy. And I was like, you guys, Todd's Slime World, let's do this. Let's play Warbirds. Come on.
And the Lynx was totally Sam's baby. He loved the notion of the hardware, and Sam, man, he loved the Lynx into the ground. Right, against all odds, he wanted to make it successful. You know, we did the original one that was sort of the original design, and then he was like, no, we got to double down on it and do it and make it better.
Being in the Bay Area, you see these ads, come test video games. So I think I tried out at a few places. Electronic Arts comes to mind. Didn't get the job there, but was lucky enough to kind of get the QA job at Atari. Back in the day, I think it was a lot more fun. People playing 4 Lynx games and then having them all go out of sync and then having to track that down. Like, probably at the 1,000th time that happens, it does get a little old. But I think back in the day, you actually got a lot more input into the games. So a lot of the last Lynx games like Lemmings and some of the early Jaguar games like Cybermorph, the QA department actually got a lot of input into those games from a design perspective. You know what? I think the Lynx was great hardware. I like the fact that it was color. And I think the fact that you could have this like 4-way local multiplayer was great.
20-some years later, here I am buying a Lynx with a RGB output because people are still modding them, you know, and selling them on eBay and stuff, right?
Yeah, speaking of eBay, man, they're expensive. Of course, it starts going into, well, that stuff here. Let's see here. I thought they were talking. Yeah, here we go. Got a redesigned version of it. That looks pretty cool. A lot of those you see today, that's more common to find. And we got the Jaguar. I was hoping that they would have some more information on the Jaguar as far as like a little more of a video. I've been through this whole thing a few times, and yeah, they didn't have a video talking about the Jaguar all that much, but we got to talk about the games here. Now, before we dive into this, as per the new CEO of Wade Rosen here of Atari, he says that they acquired a couple of trademarks, Accolade and GTI brands. Accolade is well-known respected U.S. video game developer and publisher. that was around since 1984 until the 2000s. And after Atari, since they're undertaking a multi-year effort of transforming this company behind one of the world's greatest iconic brands, what they are trying to do here is just move forward. And I know acquiring the IPs and bringing these classic games of this 100 games they purchased, we have yet to hear which ones there are, but we'll get a list out hopefully soon. So I'll probably talk about this at another broadcast. So let's check out some of the reimagined stuff. They got the haunted houses. Breakout, Neo Breakout, man, that was a really killer game. I've been playing that a lot. This is pretty tough to get used to controls, but I did have fun. Now on the Collector's Zone channel, I did have some videos I did of those games, of the Breakout, the Tank, and of course Touch Me. I didn't play that yet. But Vector Sector, this is a really killer game. It's hard as hell. And yeah, check out those videos if you want to. And it just goes into all the cool arcade games. Let's see if I could. Yeah, it won't let me go forward. One of my favorite games here, of course, Asteroids Deluxe. And I was real happy, let me hop in here, that you could play this with the background. See, where's my... Okay. The buttons on the PS4, if you ever want to know, like, hey, what's the controls like? There you go. It maps them out there for you. It's really cool. And I was just really happy to see that you could control things, go full screen, original, wide. I like the original. And it just, it reminds me of just of the arcade. And that was really cool. Alright, let me go ahead and do this here. And of course, the collection is amazing. I was really happy that, and like I said, there's about 90 games here of not only all these great arcade games, so not only you get the arcade port of these games, but you also get the cartridge games. Go through them real quick for you. So on the top there, it's labeled Atari 2600. Now, they gave you some envelopes to open up, and those are some of the videos I did on the Collector's Zone. The little thing I did here was create a playlist saying Atari, and you can check all those videos out, including my unboxing of this game and my first impressions. It was really cool. Once again, I can't say any more better stuff about this collection. I mean, it's amazing. I hope that in the future more people would take after what they did here for, Digital Eclipse did for Atari, and maybe Nintendo will take heave, and Sega, and do their own thing. Or your 5200. So I mean, they're giving you a lot of cool games here. There's 7800. Lynx. Atari 800. And I did some gameplay on these when I did my unboxing and my first impressions. So you can check out that video. Let's go ahead and move back here, because I want to end this with one of my favorite games of this whole collection. This is a reimagined game. It's a cross between Asteroids, like this says right here, Asteroids, Lunar Lander, Tempest. I mean, it's got it all, and it is hard as hell. And cool as hell looking too. So, I'm at Wave 3. I can't get past Wave 3 for some reason to unlock Wave 4. So I'll try not to do too bad here. Okay. Where's my fire? Wait a minute. Why am I not firing? Hold on. Oh, because I'm doing a live broadcast. It won't let me do it? That can't be right. Let's reset the game. Yes. Menu. Okay, I know. This is weird. Okay. Yes, not let me fire. Bummer. That ain't cool. Alright, let me quit the game. Maybe because I'm doing a live broadcast? I don't know. Let me see something here. Let me do breakout. Why wouldn't it let me fire? That was the weirdest darn thing. So I've opened all these up here. They got some really wicked levels. Let's continue where I left off. Now, the breakout pad, you use the thing in the center. Okay. The little thing in the center of the joystick, I mean. Ah! Just have to get used. Oh no! Just have to get used to it. Ah! You kidding me? Jeff, let's go ahead and do a live broadcast and show how bad you suck at this game. Well, I don't suck really bad. I just have to be in the groove. I don't know. All right. Oh look, my thing got a little larger. Hey, that came out wrong. Alright. Oh no. I hate the fact that they have solid blocks that have to get around. And it's all about angling. Alright. I really want to play Vector Sector though. Let's go ahead and... Oh look, they got an instruction manual for this. Learn something new. I did not know this existed. Kinda cool that they did all this. Far out. Alright. Sensitivity, reset game, quit game, okay. Man, let me see if something was maybe something funky was going on. Menu, yeah. I wish I had what do you call it, an instruction booklet. Let's see. Dang, I know the X button is fire. This ain't right. Oh, guys, I'm sorry. That is weird. I don't know why it won't let me do it on the broadcast. But yeah, there's some. This is kind of wonky. I don't know. It's kind of cool. I mean, Haunted Houses. I didn't play all that much in the original. I got that Breakout one. I love Breakout games. And you know what? Since I'd never played this before. Oh look, you got instructions. Okay, so X to start, skill level. Oh, it's like Simon Says. Okay, this is gonna get boring. But look, this guy's a little instruction manual. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. Alright. Well guys, once again I'm sorry about the vector sector. That would be really super cool. Yar's Revenge. You know, I've been trying to play this. I did try to play this as a kid. I couldn't figure out how to play it right. I don't know. But let's go out on the game I love the most. One of my favorites. As you can see, my initials are all over the board. Yes, I did play it once or twice. Let's see here. Oh, you know what? That's another thing I wanted to tell you guys before we go. It's really cool that they include the flyers. You know? It's really awesome. Alright. I think in the full mode, there you go, it gets rid of the side borders. But it's still kind of cool that, you know, has all the background graphics. I know when I used to play this as a kid, oh no, shield. I used to play this as a kid, that I used to just stay in the center. I always had good luck. Now, you may ask me, is there anything I don't like about this collection? Well, nothing. I love this collection. This collection is badass. Well guys, thanks for the hang time. I'm going to try to do this Sunday nights at 6 o'clock-ish Central Time. Maybe 7 or 8. Kind of depends on what I got going on. But I'll try to make this around 6, 7 o'clock Central Time. So, I really love Atari. Grew up with it. I mean, I don't know how many quarters I put in this game. Well, game on, my fellow gamers. We'll catch you on the next live broadcast. Let's see, I put my initials. There you go. Not too bad. I need to get better. Well guys, thanks for the hang time. Catch you next one. Layers.